Hello students, and I welcome you all to the session for forests and their management. This is a live TA session from NPTEL, and my name is Ashutosh. I'll be taking this class, which I missed on previous Saturday. The class was rescheduled to this Friday on 20th March, and then tomorrow we'll be having the next session for lecture week 9, where we'll be solving, which is Saturday 3 p.m. to 5 p.m., where we'll be solving points, all the multiple choice questions from lecture week 9. So today we'll be dealing with forest and their management lecture week 8, and I hope this information was well communicated with all of you guys. Sorry for joining late. There was some network issues and it is raining here in Kanpur. So let us start this session. Again, this is a recorded session that will be made available to all the students who may or may were able to or not able to join this live session. So I would encourage everyone to join this session and convey it to your friends that the class has started. So I have designed 10 multiple choice questions from lecture week 8, which we'll be solving today in this session, which is Silvicultural Management Part Module 2, where Professor Ankur Avadia has taught this course. And we are dealing with 3 lectures, which is the shelterwood system and irregular and group shelterwood system, types of shelterwood system. Okay, so this call is open to anyone can join. So let us hope that more students join this call. I will keep admitting anyone who is requesting to join this call, and let us start the class in 5 minutes. We roughly have time till 5 p.m., 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. I joined at 3:30. So let's try to wrap up things. We will easily wrap up things with worth content of 1 hour or 1.5 hours, and hope to have a good fruitful session. So let us start the class exactly after 5 minutes till we have collected some students to join us. Okay, I think it's time enough time for everyone who wanted to join this class would have joined by now, and still the class is a recorded session and it will be available via YouTube to all of you, and the slides and materials that I have prepared will be provided to you by the NPTEL authorities. Okay, so let me share my screen and start this class presentation. So uh, let us follow this rule that turn off your mic and video chat throughout this presentation session, and let me be the only one who is speaking for the smooth conduction of this session. So you can communicate with me via the chat box, post your answers, your queries and doubts, or any questions that you have for me in the chat box. Communicate with me through the chat box, but I request all the participants to please turn off your mic and video chat during this session. Okay, so let us start with lecture week module 8, Silvicultural Management module 2, where Professor Ankur Avadhya, who is the instructor of this course, has taught about shelter wood system and different types of shelter wood system. Okay, so I'll just present my slides here. Okay, so I hope everyone can see my screen and can hear my voice perfectly. If yes, then let me know through the chat box that it is so. You can type yes or give me a like so that we can begin the class. Can everyone see my slides and hear my voice properly? Okay, thanks Nilesh. I see the population today is thin, there are not many students, but nevertheless the class will go on. So let us start with Forest and their management, lecture week 8, which is the live TA session. And my name is Ashutosh Vera, I'm a PMRF scholar at IIT Kanpur. This course is course code NOC 26 BT 23. The instructor is Professor Ankur Avadhya. Okay, so this is the presentation format that we are going to follow. I have prepared 10 multiple choice questions, which are a collection from the previous assignments and quizzes. These questions are from these lecture module, and this solving these questions, multiple choice questions, I will post the question and you have to tell me what is the correct answer. Then we will discuss this question and I will reveal what is the correct answer and move forward and discuss the concepts. Meanwhile, if any doubt arises or you have any questions pertaining to the lectures taught by Professor Ankur Avadhya in week 8, you can tell me in the comment section to explain the concept. Okay, looking at the first question. Question number 1, shelter wood system results in dash. Option A, even age stand with natural aesthetics. Option B, even age stand with artificial aesthetics. Option C, uneven age stand with natural aesthetics. And option D, uneven age stands with artificial aesthetics. So the question here is talking about one of the characteristic feature of the shelter wood system. If we try the shelter wood system in silviculture, what kind of stand we will generate? Is it even age stand with natural aesthetics, even aged with artificial aesthetics, uneven aged with natural, or uneven aged with artificial aesthetics? Let's take 30 seconds to 1 minute to spend on this question and post your answers in the comment box. Try to answer for whatever you have read and understood from the lectures. Try to answer. It's okay if your answer is not the correct answer. I will reveal what is the correct answer and we will understand the concept behind this question. think it is enough time for this question. Shelter wood system results in dashed which kind of a forest and aesthetic? Even aged forest or natural or uneven aged forest, or a stand with natural or artificial aesthetics? The correct answer to this question is option A, even aged stand with natural aesthetics. So shelter wood system in silviculture is used generally to produce an even aged stand with natural aesthetic resembling that of a natural scenario or forest. Now let us understand what is the shelter wood system. In a shelter wood system, we can achieve natural regeneration by removing trees in a series of cuts, leaving mature trees, which is the shelter wood, to provide cover for new seedlings, which creates a structurally diverse forest that mimics natural uneven aged gaps in the forest. Just understand this. So we are saying that this is our forest. Then we apply the silvicultural system, which is the shelter wood system. Now, what do we mean by shelter wood? In the shelter wood system, we selectively remove trees with a series of cutting phases, leaving mature trees, which are the shelter wood. So you leave such mature trees, which will provide shelter or shade to the new growing plants or saplings, and you remove some other selective trees in a series of cutting tactics and leave these shelters. These are the shelters here, like this. And why do you do that? This provides cover for the new seedlings. So now whenever there will be new seedlings, these will be protected, and these are often seen in shade bearing plants or shade tolerant species. There are many plants which require shade in their early years to grow properly. Shelter wood system is one such system which benefits those kind of plants, and it also creates natural uneven aged gaps forest, and sorry creates an even aged stands with natural aesthetics. So how do we get these natural aesthetics? What is the key outcomes of the shelter wood system? In the shelter wood system, you do not cut all the trees at one go. You remove only you selectively remove trees and provide shelter to them from the mature trees and allow natural regeneration to occur. And in comparison to the clear felling system, where you cut all the trees at once and extract the timber and allow artificial regeneration to take place, here in a shelter wood system, you keep the tall shelter trees with large canopies to provide the shelter to the young saplings or the newer regeneration. And such regeneration is generally a natural regeneration from the remaining trees. And trees regenerate in one main period, so the resulting forest is even aged. So if you look closely, there are two populations of the trees that we are now seeing: shelter wood trees, which will further be removed in the subsequent phases to create even aged forest. Because some trees are retained temporarily, the forest looks more natural compared to the clear cutting or clear felling system. So that is why the shelter wood system, so in shelter wood system, you would have an even aged natural aesthetic style. So first there are trees like this, mature trees. In a shelter wood system, you first cut some of these trees and provide shelter, preserve some shelter trees so that there is new sapling growth. There are sapling growths here, which the trees provide the protection, and cover. And then these when these new saplings grow into bushes, then the remaining older trees are extracted for timber, which creates an even age stand, and for a temp and because some trees are retained temporarily, this looks naturally aesthetic. So that is why the answer is naturally aesthetic, even aged forests are created as a result of shelter wood system. Is it clear to the students? If yes, just let me know in the chat box or with a like or a yes. Then we will move ahead to the next question. In the shelter wood system, we create an even aged and naturally aesthetic forest type. Okay, I think everyone understood this. Let's move on to the next question. Yes, thank you, Aditya. Let's move on to the next question, question number 2. In group shelter wood system, the regeneration area is increased dash. Option A, centrifugally around gaps. Option B, centripetally around gaps. Option C, parallel to gaps. And option D, perpendicular to gaps. So here we are talking about a subset or a type of shelter wood system, which is group shelter wood system. In group shelter wood system, the regeneration area, how is it increased, in which manner or direction, you have to tell me in the comment box. Is it parallel or perpendicular to the gaps, centrifugally or centripetally to the gaps? Okay, if you remember the group shelter wood system, you'll be able to answer this question. Let me know what you think is the correct answer in the comment box. Okay, I think it's time to look at the chat box. Aditya says A and Nilesh says B. Okay, so let us find out what is the correct answer. In a group shelter wood system, the regeneration area is generally increased. Option A, centrifugally around the gaps. So it's centrifugal to the central position or the areas where the group felling system, group shelter wood system has to be occupied. So option A is the correct answer. Well done. Aditya is correct, but Nilesh, you may have to try your luck in the next answer. Okay, let us understand what happens in a group shelter wood system. So there are various types of shelter wood system or silviculture that can be obtained to regenerate a forest. What happens in a group shelter wood system? In the group shelter wood system is a silvicultural method that regenerates forests by establishing small gaps or utilizing the existing gaps in the canopy and expanding them outward in concentric rings until the entire stand is regenerated. So what do we mean by that? So we have here 3 examples. Uniform shelter wood, where these dots or gaps, these are the clearance in the canopy that it is created. It is uniformly continuous. Group shelter wood created in many groups. A single patch or a group of trees are removed in one go, and the other trees are left as a shelter wood. And this is an example of strip shelter wood, in which the felling is done in strips and the other trees provide the shelter wood shade. So what happens in the group shelter wood system? Consider a forest area like this, and generally group shelter wood system focuses on areas which have dense outgrowth or dense canopy areas, and then the felling starts in concentric rings like this, centrifugally to this point. Suppose this is a point in your forest area which has lots of canopy, which has a dense outgrowth, which has lots of trees. So what do you start? You start felling the older trees. You start felling in this area in concentric rings around the dense outgrowth or advanced vegetation area, and you create such concentric rings, and you move centrifugally to the surface, creating more larger cuts and area like this. And you have to remember that in the shelter wood system, fellings are done over a time period. So you are not immediately cutting all the forest, but rather moving in concentric rings. After this patch has regenerated, you move to the next patch and you remove the concentric rings and then increase the area centrifugally again, and thus cover the whole patch. So this is a group shelter wood system. Where you move in centrifugal directions and target patches with dense outgrowth so you have to locate such areas in the forest and more canopy. The area of the forest where there is lot of canopy, that is the area preferred for a group shelter wood system, and the felling begins around that area in a concentric circle. So here is a comparison between the single tree cutting method and the group cutting method. In the group shelter wood system, regeneration is often carried out using centrifugal cutting. Centrifugal cutting starts from the center of a group and gradually moves outwards. A small opening or group is created first, and after regeneration begins at the center, surrounding trees are removed in a stage, expanding the opening outward. That is what I was telling you. So first you start with an opening in the canopy, which is one tree. Fell it in concentric circles, let's say 5 trees. Wait for the area to regenerate and then start along with another concentric circle in a centrifugal manner and clear the area and wait for subsequent regeneration. So this is a group shelter wood system, as correctly mentioned in the diagram above here. So you first start with one crop here, let's say this, then you centrifugally cut around it in concentric circle, and when the crop regenerates you cut you cut around again one more circle and allow the crop to regenerate. So this is a silvicultural practice to regenerate a stand, where regenerate a forest stand where the stand is cut along in groups. So if you view a top view like this, then you can see that the canopy, which is continuous, is broken in concentric circles or in groups where the patches or the trees have been removed. Okay, so in group shelter wood we use centrifugal cutting techniques to make circular cuts alongside a single individual and in an area which has regenerated properly after a single cut. Is it clear to the students? If yes, then let me know in the chat box, and we will move ahead with the next question. Okay, thanks Suresh. Okay, let's move to the question number 3. Trees not putting increment are removed during which phase of shelter wood system? Important question. Trees not putting increment are removed during which phase of cutting? Preparatory felling, option A; option B, seeding felling; option C, secondary felling; or option D, final felling. Trees that are not putting increment, when are they removed in a shelter wood system? Is it during the preparatory felling, or the seeding felling, secondary felling, or the final felling? Let us take some time to collect answers in the comment box. Trees which are not putting increment or are not showing active signs of growth. Okay, I think it's enough time to revisit this question. Trees which are not putting increment are removed during the preparatory felling phase of a shelter wood system. The preparatory felling is the first stage or first event of the shelter wood system where trees which are not putting increment are removed. It's not the seeding felling, not the secondary or final felling, but the preparatory felling phase where trees which are not showing growth are removed first. So now what happens in a shelter wood system? Let's revisit the definitions again. What are the stages of the shelter wood system? The shelter wood system is typically carried out in 4 stages or fellings to ensure natural regeneration under the shelter of remaining trees. So this is the whole idea of shelter wood system. It aims for natural regeneration under the shelter of remaining trees, and it is typically carried out in 4 stages. Preparatory felling, which is the first event of felling done first to prepare the stand for regeneration. So this is the felling or cut where the aim is to extract the timber and to prepare the stand for regeneration. Now, which of the trees are first felled in the preparatory felling? Poor trees, diseased trees, and suppressed trees can be removed, or trees which are not putting on increment. Remaining trees get more light and space, improving their seed production and capacity. So what will happen when you remove certain trees which are old, which are poor, which are diseased, or are not putting up any more increase in height or girth? So when you remove such trees, number one, you extract good amount of timber. Number two, you are preparing the soil, or you are preparing the forest stand for regeneration, because the remaining trees which are still younger, which are still better in health and can put on more height and girth, receive more nutrients, have lesser competition, and get more light and space to grow further. Then comes the second stage, which is the seed felling. Now in this felling, you cut some more plants, and it is usually conducted in a good seed year is a time when for a particular species that this species is going to give seed during this time of the year. Some mature trees are removed to allow enough light for germination of the seeds, and the best seed bearing trees are retained to provide seeds for natural regeneration. Now, here you prefer cutting down those trees which are not seed bearing, which have and you only select the best seed bearing trees to survive in the forest stand, and you extract the timber out of the other trees which are relatively poorer in seed dispersal and quality. So that you cut off all those trees uh, which uh, you cut off all those trees which show poor seed quality, and you only make use of the best seed bearing trees to retain the stand and to provide seeds for natural regeneration. Then comes the third phase of secondary felling, which is in contemplation to the primary felling or preparatory felling, done after the seedlings have established. Now, after the seedlings have been established, more of the overwood trees are removed gradually. This releases the young generation and gives them more light and space and lesser competition amongst themselves as well as amongst the older generation trees. So you finally remove the older overwood trees and allow the saplings to regenerate. And then the final felling, these remaining shelter trees are removed. By this time, regeneration is well established and can grow independently. By this time, the saplings or the seedlings or the germination has happened, regeneration is well established, which now leads to creation of an even-aged forest stands, and all the forest can grow independently of each other. Okay, so the shelterwood system is done in 4 phases or 4 fellings. First is a preparatory felling, where poor, diseased, and trees which do not put growth are removed. Next is the seed felling. Remove all the plants, remove some more plants, and preserve the best seed bearing plants in the soil to germinate and disperse the seeds. Then is done the secondary felling, where you remove some more trees and overwood trees, bigger canopy trees, to provide more light and space for the newer plants to grow and attain height and bole and girth. And the final felling to remove the remaining shelter trees and extract them for timber, now regenerating the forest as an even-aged forest stand. So it is the preparatory felling, where the tree is not putting on significant goal or significant growth, as well as disease, defective, or less valuable species are removed. This creates better light, space, and soil conditions for new healthy seedlings to establish. What is the goal of this preparatory felling? To improve the crop composition and create favorable conditions for seed production. So you remove old, unhealthy, and low yield trees that are no longer growing significantly, and this is generally done near the end of the rotation age. So if a stand or a crop is rotating in 100 years, then the preparatory felling is done towards the end of uh, its uh, its rotation age, which is 90 to 100 years, where the sufficient amount of timber can be extracted, as well as disease, defective, or less valuable species can be removed. So suppose you have a forest uh, where you have these you have all these trees, different types of trees. And you want to regenerate your forest stand using silvicultural system. So what happens in a shelterwood system? What happens in a shelterwood system in a preparatory felling? You would choose such plants which are the plants you are going to choose? Less valuable, less valuable, disease or defective, trees showing no growth. Now why? Because if you remove these trees, these qualities or characteristics are not going to pass on to the next generation. So suppose you do not want certain kinds of trees, so you can shell these trees in the preparatory felling phase to make space for newer saplings. So first you choose less valuable, you remove the less valuable plants. Then let's say this plant is diseased and you do not want the seeds or parasites to to spread into different plants, so you also plan to remove this in the preparatory felling. And trees showing no growth, let's say this is a tree which shows no growth, it is not putting up height or girth, and its net productivity has stopped. So what you do is you also fell this tree and thus allow the first phase of the celtowort system, this is the preparatory felling, allow the seeds of these species to grow and repopulate the forest. So in the next in the next year or in the next rotation age, whenever you look at your stand will comprise of more valuable trees because you have removed the less valuable ones. You have removed the diseased or defective ones, so you have healthier trees to begin with, and trees which have a more light and space and lesser competition to grow and show more room for growth. So this is generally done in the preparatory felling phase of the shelterwood system. Is it clear to the students? If you understood it properly, then type yes or a like in the comment box and we can move ahead to the next question. Okay, I think we should move ahead to the next question. Question number 4. Clear felling system is not used for dash kind of trees. Clear felling system is not used for which kind of species? Option A, light demanding species. Option B, shade bearer species. Option C, plain areas. Option D, plateau areas. In which situation can you not use a clear felling system? Type your answers in the comment box and let me know what do you think is the correct answer. I will reveal the correct answer in a minute or so. When we revisit this question. Okay, I think it's enough time. Let's check the comment box for answers. And I think Aditya and Nilesh are both saying B. Let us find out what is the correct answer. Clear felling system is not used for option B, shade bearer species. Both of you are very correct. Done. So nice. So shade bearer species are the ones which cannot be tended to with a clear felling system. Now what are shade bearer species and why it is not suitable for the clear felling system? Now there are two types of trees that we generally talk about in a silvicultural stand management, utilizing clear felling and the shelterwood systems. One, which is the light demanding trees which are shade intolerant, need full sunlight to thrive and grow quickly in canopy gaps while shade demanding or shade tolerant trees can grow in low light understory conditions. For an example, mango tree is a light demanding tree. It can only grow where it receives the full sunlight, and it will grow quickly to thrive, and thus it is a light demanding or shade intolerant species. Whereas on the other hand, the jamun tree in India is a shade demanding tree, and especially in younger years it demands a partial shade for its proper growth and increment. So it's a shade tolerant species. So it can grow in an understory conditions. Light demanders often have rapid growth but struggle under the shade, whereas shade bearers prioritize survival and steady growth in shaded environments. So a stark comparison like the mango tree versus the jamun tree, where the mango tree is a light demanding tree and the jamun tree is a shade tolerant species. Now what happens in a clear felling or a shelter wood system? So this is a comparison between the clear cutting system, shelter wood system, and the selective cutting system. In a clear cutting system, in one go you are felling a lot of trees. You are actually felling the whole area. See, look at these. Look at these area here. You are actually trying to fell all these areas and remove all the trees. So whenever there is sunlight here, so the shade bearers or shade tolerant species cannot grow in a clear cutting scenario, because there will be direct sunlight to the shade tolerant species, which require a shelter wood system, which require a bigger tree providing shade to the sapling for regeneration. Whereas in a shelter wood logging system, when the regeneration is happening, there is always a protective canopy which is protecting from the sun's direct shade, and but this is not suitable for light demanding species. So only shade tolerant or shade bearing plants will benefit from the shelter wood logging, but not the light demanding species. For a light demanding species regeneration, we need to do a clear cut felling, but clear cut felling is not suitable for shade tolerant species to grow back in regeneration, because there is no older tree or big tree to provide shelter or shade under which there is growth for the shade bearing species. So that is why for shade tolerant species or shade bearing species, for shade bearer trees, it is always the shelter wood system that is preferred. Okay, is it clear to the students? You guys have answered correctly, so I'm hoping you would understand this. It's an easy concept to understand, but nevertheless, in a shelter wood system, we prioritize the shade and the shelter for the shade tolerant species or shade bearer species. So that is why this system is suitable for shade bearing species. Okay, let's move on to the next question, question number 5. Okay, so what do we see here? For a crop with rotation age of 120 years, PB3 would have crop age of dash. This can be a tricky question. For a crop with a rotation age of 120 years, PB3 would have crop age of dash. Option A, 0 to 30 years. Option B, 30 to 60 years. Option C, 60 to 90 years. Option D, 90 to 120 years. Let's come back to this question and find out what is the correct answer. For a crop with rotation age of 120 years, the PB3 would have crop age of dash. And the correct answer is 30 to 60 years. This is the PB3 age for crop rotation of 120 years. Now, what is PB3 and what is PB, and how do we calculate this age of the PB? A PB stands for periodic block. And what is a periodic block? A periodic block in a shelter wood system is a designated, often permanent area of forest set aside for regeneration and harvesting within a specific time frame, for example 30 years, during the overall rotation period. Okay, so let's say you divide your forest area into blocks. PB1, PB2, PB3 and PB4. You designate or you divide the area of the forest into 4 different blocks, and you treat one block at a time. Say for PB1 for felling and regeneration, such that the shelter wood system is maintained with consecutive felling and regenerations in different areas of the forest, and a permanent or designated area of the forest is set aside for regeneration and harvesting within a specific time frame of the rotation age of the plant. So in a shelter wood system, the rotation age, for example 120 years, is the total time to mature a stand, while the regeneration period, typically 20 to 30 years, is the time taken to establish a new crop under shelter. So what is the difference between the rotation age and the regeneration period? Rotation age, the total time to obtain a mature stand from a sapling, which is 120 years, which is what is given in this question. And the regeneration period, typically 20 to 30 years in the time taken to establish a new crop under shelter. So what do we mean by establishing a new crop? Attaining a crop at a particular age and the height along after which it can independently grow and not be destroyed by natural forces. Like it cannot, when the crop is small, it can be grazed, it can be attacked by wildfires, the seedling will not disperse properly. But attaining or establishing a new crop under the shelter of the old trees, where it can attain independent height and growth, that is called the regeneration period. Now the forest is divided into periodic blocks where PB1 is currently being regenerated, managed in stages like preparatory seeding, secondary and final felling to achieve an even age stand. So that is why in PB1 we have divided the whole forest into 4 different periodic blocks, and tending each periodic block particular for different for different stages of the shelter wood system. So generally the crop that is being tended right now is the PB1, which is the periodic block 1, which is the oldest age of the oldest mature trees. Generally what do? We considered if our trees are 120 years of age, which are old mature tree, and these are the trees which will undergo timber extraction and preparatory felling. Okay, because these trees are the most mature trees, and there will be felling here, leaving behind some few shelter woods and clearing the forest for timber extraction and for preparatory fellings, where we clear the forest in the shelter wood system. So this is generally the PB1, periodic block 1, which is the block undergoing felling and regeneration. And what happens when the PB1 is felled? Now it enters the second block, which is the PB2, where we have the regeneration, seed felling, and regeneration felling. Like the crop which was cut from the shelter wood trees is now regenerating. The trees that were left behind is producing seeds, and the regeneration is going on. So the trees that were in the PB1, now block 1, enter the periodic block 2, where they will be left for seed felling and regeneration felling. Meanwhile, the previous and then after the age of 30 years, it enters block 3. Now in block 3 we have the secondary felling. In block 3 we have the secondary felling, cutting off more trees to allow cutting off the overstory and the canopies to allow more sunlight to pass through and help in growth of the seed and germination and promoting regeneration. And in the final block, which is PB4, the remaining shelter wood, which is the final felling, the remaining shelter wood is removed, leaving behind an even-aged, newly regenerated stand. Okay. Meanwhile, since one area of the forest is undergoing shelter wood system, it entered the PB1. It was the block 1 where there were mature trees, entered PB2, PB3, PB4. Meanwhile, the PB4 moves to become the new PB1, another area of the forest which has freshly regenerated, or the forest stand, now enters the mature age of 90 to 120 years and then undergoes timber extraction and preparatory felling. So this cycle continues with different areas of the forest entering into different periodic blocks for tending and shelter wood system management, where each block is undergoing a different kind of felling and tending of the stand characteristic to the shelter wood system at different time points. So let's say block 1 is undergoing preparatory felling, while block 2 is undergoing seed felling, while at the same time, at any given time, this is undergoing secondary felling and this is undergoing final felling. And this being one whole forest, now when this transitions to secondary felling, this transition to the seed felling, this transition to the secondary felling. I'll draw it a bigger. Yeah, considering the same periodic block example here, when in PB1, which is a preparatory felling, one block is going from preparatory felling. When it is transitioning to the seed felling, at the same time, at any given time in the PB2, the seed felling has been established, which is now going into the secondary felling. And at similar time, the rotation continues, where secondary felling crops goes to the final felling, and at PB4, the final felling is always rotating towards the preparatory felling. So in such a way, at any given time, different parts of the forest are undergoing different tending activities owing to the shelter wood system. hope it is clear to the students. So in that system, if our plant is starting with 120 years of age, then at PB3, which is a secondary felling, it will be 30 years of age. Because in the second stand, it will be 60 to 90 years of age, 90 to 60, this will be 90 to 120, 120 to 90, 90 to 60, this will be 60 to 30 years of age, this will be 30 to 0 years of age. I hope it is clear to the students. If yes, then just let me know in the chat box, and we can move ahead to the next question. Okay, moving on to the next question. Very good. Question number 6. Felling made with the object of opening the canopy to remove shelter and allow more light for the regenerated crop is dash. Which kind of felling is made with the object of opening the canopy to remove shelter and allow more light for the regenerated crop? Option A, preparatory felling. Option B, seeding felling. Option C, secondary felling. Option D, final felling. Let us take some time to collect answers in the chat box, and we will revisit this question to reveal what is the correct answer. So coming back to this question, felling made with the object of opening the canopy to remove the shelter and allow more light for the regenerated crop is known as secondary felling. So this is exactly what secondary felling is. The purpose of secondary felling is to open up the canopy to remove more shelter to allow light to pass through the understory and growing offsprings for supporting the regenerated crop. Now let us understand again in the details the stages of shelter wood system. The first stage is the preparatory cut, or prior to seed filling, whatever the stand tending is done. In the shelter wood system, secondary filling is a stage where the overstory trees, which were initially left to shelter young seedlings, are progressively removed to allow the newly established forest regeneration to grow. So here, prior to seedling felling, we have the forest like this. Then in the seeding stage, you first remove all the undesirable trees, the trees that are not putting increment, trees that are showing diseases or parasites, and you prepare the stand for regeneration. Then in the seeding stage, you keep the best seed producing and seed dispersing trees in your stand and remove all other trees. And in the secondary stage is when after the seeds have germinated, the seeds are in the growing phase, You actually open up the canopy to allow the sunlight to pass through the growing crop into the ground floor, into the forest floor and in the understory level, so that the crops are, or the forest stand or the newly growing saplings are supported by the light and nutrients. This will also reduce the competition between the newly growing crops and the already existing shelter wood in the secondary stage, which is mostly done by cutting the canopy, by felling the trees with larger canopy and overwood, removing the overbrush. And in the final stage, those shelter wood trees that have been left behind to provide shelter are being removed, because now the new crop has been established, and this established crop is now left for to mature, to make the mature or regeneration start. So this cycle continues. That as I was saying, what is the purpose of secondary felling in the shelter wood system? To open the canopy gradually, to provide more light, space and nutrients to the established seedings of the regeneration, and to promote faster growth of regeneration, to remove trees that suppress the young plants. So we have a mature tolerant hardwood forest. The first cut, which is the preparatory cut, over mature and poor quality trees, this is 10% of the total crop matter are marked and then cut. And after 20 to 30 years after the preparatory cut has been done, the remaining trees have thrived and next generation is well established, which consists of the seeding cut. Then there is a secondary cut, which is once again up to 30% of the mature trees are cut, focusing on the removal of poor quality trees and over canopy trees to provide more light, space and nutrients and to reduce the competition. And for another 20 to 30 years, the forest is ready for a third cut with removal of another 20% of the trees, and the cycle continues. So in this method, in the secondary felling, the main purpose is to open up the canopy for allowing light to support the growth and regeneration of the new crops. I hope it is clear to the students. If yes, then let's move on to the next question. Question number 7. Close to nature forestry is a feature of dash. Close to nature forestry, or a silvicultural method or a forestry in which your forest or your methods resemble close to what happens in nature. Option A, clear filling system. Option B, selection system. Option C, uniform shelter wood system. Option D, group shelter wood system. Let us take some time and collect some answers in the chat box. I'll be revisiting this question to reveal what is the correct answer to this question. Yeah, coming back to this question, question number 7. Close to nature forestry is a feature of dash. Correct answer is selection system. So selection system is a method in which we can replicate close to nature forestry. Not a clear felling system, obviously, because you cut all the trees in one go, which is totally man-made and artificial, does not resemble a clear nature forestry system. Group shelterwood and uniform shelterwood system is also allowing certain kinds of shelterwood trees to remain and cutting the rest of the trees. This is also man-made, but close to nature system or forestry system is a selection system. Now let us understand what is the selection system. The selection system is a method of forest management where individual trees or small groups of trees are harvested periodically while the rest of the forest remains standing. So this selection system of silviculture is done throughout the year infinitely, and small groups or trees, group of trees are harvested periodically. This maintains a continuous forest cover and uneven aged structure. So in the high forest system, is felling and regeneration, we ask the question whether felling and regeneration concentrated on part of the forest area or continues over the whole area. When it is continuous over the whole area, then it is the selection system. When it is concentrated on part of the forest area, the old crop is cleared by a single felling. Then we have the question whether the old crop is cleared by a single felling or in successive regeneration fellings. If it is cleared in a single felling, then it is a clear cutting system, while when it takes successive regeneration fellings, it can be further divided into categories. Then we ask the question, how is a successive regeneration felling carried out? How is the canopy opened? Evenly over compartment, then it is a uniform shelterwood system. In scattered gaps, which is a group system, or irregular and gradual, which is an irregular shelterwood system. But in the selection system, the whole felling and regeneration process is continuous over the whole area of the forest, and small groups of trees are harvested periodically over the whole forest, while this maintains a continuous forest cover and uneven aged structure. Now, in the selection system, natural aesthetics are maintained because continuous forest cover. Only selected mature trees are removed. The forest never becomes completely open or bare. So, for example, if you look at this diagram, there was a stand in 1999 which undergoes many types of selection, many types of silvicultural system to generate the kind of stand that we see here. If it is under no action, the trees grow somehow and form a uniform stand. If there is a thinning of the individuals, then it causes stands. In the selection system, uh, only a selected mature trees are removed, leaving behind the trees more or less in their natural habitat, in the natural format, which creates an uneven aged natural forest like scenario. And in a clear cut felling system, all the trees are removed in one go, allowing for the regeneration in artificial mode and then covering up. The main feature of the selection system is the uneven age structure, where trees of different ages and sizes remain together, giving the forest a natural appearance similar to an untouched forest. So this is why it is very close to the nature-like forestry. No large or clear openings are created in the selection system. Unlike the clear cutting system, large patches of land are not cleared, and there is a gradual change in landscape which happens in a selection system. Harvesting is done periodically and selectively, so the visual impact on the forest landscape is minimal. And there is also preservation of biodiversity and scenery. The mixed structure of trees, forest, understory plants, and the canopy and the overstory wildlife habitat keeps the forest visually attractive. That is why in the selection system, natural aesthetics and the nature-like forestry is maintained. I hope it is clear to the students. If yes, then let's move on to the next question. Question number 8. Inverse J-shaped number diameter curves are seen in dash. Inverse J-shaped number diameter curves are seen in which kind of silvicultural system? Option A, clear felling system. Option B, selection system. Option C, uniform shelterwood system. Option D, group shelterwood system. Let us take a minute to post your answers in the chat box. I would encourage all students to please give answers in the chat box, whichever you think is the correct option to this question. And I will come back to this question and reveal what is the correct answer. Coming back to this question, there is enough time. Inverse J-shaped number diameter curves are seen in selection system. Option B is the correct answer. In a selection system, if you plot a number versus diameter curve, then it was looked like an inverted J. Let us look at this curve, this characteristic curve, and how and what does it signify. Now, what is the inverse J curve? The x-axis represents diameter class or small or large trees, which is mostly the diameter at breast height. Diameter, this is the DBH, diameter at breast height. This is the x-axis, and y-axis is the number of trees. Now this inverted J curve shows that in a selection system, as the DBH increases, the number of trees decreases, which is true because in a natural forest system, you have less number of mature trees, mature old trees, and if you consider this, these are, let's say this is 100 years old, these are 80 years old, because depending on the diameter of the breast height, these trees can be classified. For other systems where there is a number to age curve, here we can have a number to DBH curve, since this is a natural system and the age of the, you do not know the age of, is an uneven aged forest system, and you do not know the age of many of the plants. So what you can consider is the diameter at the breast height. Let's say this is a tree which is 50 years old, and these are younger populations. That is why we see a J-shaped, inverted J-shaped curve. So the curve starts high on the left and gradually declines towards the right, forming an inverse J. Why it occurs in the selection system? Because the forest is uneven aged, as I was explaining. Continuous natural regeneration produces many small trees. So due to natural regeneration here, you produce many small trees. And some small trees, and once the stand is passing on to a different age, there is certain mortality. Let's say there were 100 small trees, some of them got grazed, -10, some of them got destroyed in a forest fire, -20. So only 70 individuals are going on to the next stage. Only a few reach large diameter because mature trees are periodically removed during selection felling. So in selection felling, what do? In the natural course of development, many of the trees or saplings die off, and you also fell those trees. And the inverse J curves indicates balanced uneven age strand structure, sustainable yield of timber, and continuous regeneration of the forest. If the inverse J distribution is maintained, the forest can be harvested repeatedly without losing productivity. So this is an important point to note. If the inverse J structure is maintained, the forest can be harvested repeatedly without losing productivity. Yeah, as I was saying, if we plot the number versus age for all other systems, then we would have, in an even age system like a clear felling system, we would have different populations at a certain age, because we have even aged systems, even aged forests in the clear felling system. Now if you join the points of all these, if we join the points of all these, this would represent a shelter wood selection system. Of uneven edged. Creating the inverse J curve. Because less number of less number or less age of trees reaching maturity, and there is always a more number of trees in the small stage, small growth stage. This is the scenario in a natural habitat, natural forest. So in a selection felling, what do? We cut only a portion of the mature trees selection felling. Only a portion of the mature trees is cut, and less of the stand is left to regenerate. So you always cut a few number of mature trees, and you allow the stands to regenerate, and this cutting can be done throughout the year through different areas of the strand, and thus making it a productive system for silviculture. I hope it is clear to the students. Here there are examples of many curves: bell-shaped curve for an even edge forest, balanced and uneven edged TBH versus number curve, here as we see in the selection system, irregular uneven edged curve, irregular uneven edge forest, and here we have the number to DBH curve, and stratified even edge curve also looks like an inverse J. I hope it is clear to the students that how the inverse J curve looks like in a selection system, because it mimics the natural forest, which is uneven edged and balanced. Okay, moving on to the next question. Which of these is the correct system sequence for the shelter wood system? Which of these is the correct sequence for the shelter wood system? Option A, preparatory felling, followed by secondary felling, followed by seedling felling, followed by final felling. Option B, preparatory felling, followed by seedling felling, followed by secondary felling, followed by final felling. Option C, preparatory felling, secondary felling, seedling felling, final felling. And option D, preparatory, seeding, secondary, final felling. Okay, you have to tell me what is the correct sequence of the shelter wood system. This is an easy one. Two options have repeated themselves, so you have to just identify which is the correct one. What are the stages of the shelter wood system? Coming back to this easy questions, which of these is the correct sequence for shelter wood system? Correct answer is option B and option D. Preparatory felling, then comes the seedling felling, then comes the secondary felling, and finally the final felling. Recapping what we have learnt about the shelter wood system, preparatory felling removes the defective and unwanted trees, improves the condition of the remaining trees so that there can be good seed which is produced. Seedling felling or seed felling opens the canopy to allow seed fall and germination and preserves the best seed bearing plants on the stand, and enough seed trees are retained. In the secondary felling, you gradually remove more overwood, provide more light for younger regeneration, and the final felling to remove the remaining old trees once the regeneration is well established. So this is the sequence. First we have preparatory felling, then the seeding felling, then the secondary felling, and the final felling. And this cycle continues. When the final felling reaches the maturity of the preparatory felling, the stand can again be regenerated. So here is an example of these felling systems, a comparison between a clear cut system where large patches of the forest are clearly felled. All the trees are felled in one sitting, allowing regeneration to happen. A uniform shelter wood system in which uniform gaps are maintained between the shelter wood and the newly regenerating plants. In a strip system in which one strip of the land here is felled and keeping the other strip of the shelter wood alive for providing shade and shelter to the plants, and in a group system where different patches or groups are removed in concentric rings or centrifugally the plants are removed and regenerated in a group shelter wood system. Moving on to the final question of this session, catchment areas are best suited for dash. Question number 10, catchment areas are best suited for dash. Option A, clear felling system. Option B, selection system. Option C, uniform shelter wood system. Option D, group shelter wood system. Come on guys, this is the last question of this session, so please show participation. Try to post your answer in the comment box. It's okay if your answer is wrong or correct. I will anyway reveal what is the correct answer and we will understand the concept such that you won't make the same mistake again. Okay? Catchment areas are best suited for which kind of silvicultural system? Is it clear felling system, selection system, uniform shelter wood, or a group shelter wood system? Okay, coming back to this question, catchment areas are best suited for selection system of silviculture. Now, what is a catchment area? A catchment area is a geographical region that drains water into a specific body of water, such as a river, lake, or reservoir. Also known as a drainage basin or watershed, it is defined by natural boundaries like hills and ridges. So, this is a catchment area, an area of land where water collects when it rains. So, when there is a rainfall in the hill slopes, the surface water is runoff, and in the valley region or where there is a river, there is always evaporation, surface water and groundwater interaction. There is a groundwater recharge through the rainfall in the hilly areas, and this recharge is supplemented when there is a thick forest cover which does not let water run off with soil erosion. The trees that hold on to the mountain soil allows for water to spend more times on the mountains rather than running off into the catchment area, and the water then percolates inside the rocky mountains and the soil and recharge the underground water level, thus supplying water to the flowing stream. So this is a catchment area. Now, catchment areas are best suited for the selection system because this system maintains continuous forest cover, which is essential for protecting water resources. Continuous canopy cover, only a few trees are removed at a time in a selection system, so the forest remains covered, protecting the soil and water resources. Because of heavy rainfall, whenever there is a heavy rainfall and there are lesser trees, this area will be prone to erosion. So, having a selection system of silviculture where only a few number of trees are removed, mature trees are removed from the hilly area in the catchment area, prevents soil erosion. Tree roots and litter layer hold the soil. This reduces erosion and prevents silt from entering streams and reservoirs. So, what will happen if you remove many of the trees from the forests and mountains or in the catchment areas? There will be silting of the dams. There will be over flooding of the rivers. Better water regulation, forest vegetation improves infiltration of rainwater into the soil and helps maintain steady stream flow in the catchment areas. Reducing runoff and floods, continuous vegetation slows down the surface runoff. Of course, because the plants and the roots that are strengthening the soil on the mountain act as barriers for the surface runoff, and this helps in flood control, and this also recharges the underground water levels and provides sustenance to many of the streams and the rivers. Less disturbance means less sediment and pollutants entering the water bodies. Therefore, selection system of silviculture is best suited for catchment areas in the mountain and in the mountain valleys. I hope it is clear to the students. Okay, so with this we have come to the end of our session, problem solving session. So I'll just stop my presentation and come back to the class here. Yeah, so with this we have completed the lecture week 8 live TA session for forests and their management, where we saw about shelter wood system, different kinds of shelter wood system, and how the silvicultural management module 2 was covered. So we solved 10 multiple choice questions with the help of PowerPoint presentations, and we understood briefly the basics about how we do a shelter wood system, what are the advantages, what are the characteristics and disadvantages of the shelter wood system, different types of shelter wood system as well. So I hope you liked the class, you were able to understand and follow what I was teaching. If not, feel free to write to me. You have my email, or keep your questions reserved for the next class. When we end the class sooner, you can post your questions from the previous module or the classes to me, and I will try my best to clear your doubts. So I hope everyone understood the class. If you have any doubts, you can post it in the chat box, or else I will end this session. These are recorded sessions, so even if you were not able to attend it live, or these sessions will be available uploaded on YouTube immediately after the session is completed, and the materials and slides which have previous assignment questions will be provided to you by the NPTEL authorities. Okay, so if there are no further questions, I will end this class. Thank you for joining. See you this Saturday with lecture week 9. I hope you have all read through your lectures. We'll be solving 10 multiple choice questions with lecture week 9. with pertaining to lecture week 9, and I hope to see you in large numbers. Thank you, and bye bye. See you this Saturday. I'll end this call for everyone.